Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and I'm guessing that you have just installed Starset, reinstalled Starset after a wee break, or are considering whether to get the game. Now I'm not aiming to teach you everything there is to know about the game. For one, I don't know it, and everything that I do would probably be a 12-hour video and it would still be incomplete because I'd forget stuff. I'm hoping that over the course of this vid, I can get you just enough education to perform, nail the basics and get you off on the right foot. So if this sounds good to you, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. As ever, it's difficult to know exactly where to start with this game. I know that some people watching are going to be further along than others, some of whom might be watching this before hitting buy on a game pack. So I'm going to start right from the beginning with account creation, ship choice, and the very basics of getting into game. I always make sure that my videos are split up with chapters, so please feel free to use these to skip ahead to bits that suit you more. First up, you'll want to head to the Roberts Space Industries website and click on Play Now up in the top right. I'll include links to all of this down in the video description below. Here you can create your account, entering your account name, which will be your in-game handle by default, so keep this in mind before you make it too cringe, and your other details. Just make sure to include a referral code in the box. This will net you a bonus 50k in starter cash, which is a useful sum when you're starting out. Keep in mind that if you've just started and didn't use one, you've got 24 hours to go back and add one in to get those rewards. Mine's the one up on screen, but if you've got any friends who are playing already, please just ask them for theirs. Keep in mind though that Star Citizen has regular free fly events, and I would certainly expect one in November with the annual IAE show. During these, the game is accessible to anyone with an account, so if you're not sure or you want to check that your system's going to handle it, then just wait for one of those to come around and give it a go for free. Just pause at this step for now. Assuming you do want to get in today, next we've got some packs to choose from. Now my first point here is that the cheapest pack, the Citizen Starter, which contains a Mustang Alpha and game access, is all that you need to get in and enjoy the game. The vast majority of ships and items can be earned in-game, so while the gaming press is full of plentiful examples of how much people can spend on Star Citizen, you really do not need to. However, do keep an eye out for deals. They may let you get a much better ship for a fraction more. Right now, a Drake Cutter will cost you about $2 more, and is arguably a chunk better than a Mustang. Just make sure that whatever you buy is described as a pack, and is not labelled as a standalone ship. The key difference is kind of in the name. Packs include game access. If at some point down the line you decided that you wanted to buy a second ship, you could always go with standalone. They work out a bit cheaper, since you're not getting double charged for the game itself. Now I'm starting this account fresh, because I think it's the best way to show someone getting started, but I want to gift it out when I'm done. So to me the Duelist Sitcom starter pack that's currently available is actually a really good option for a 10 or more, coming with an Avenger Titan and quite a nice set of armour to boot. So just in this instance, I'm personally going to go for that. You'll forgive me if I pause the recording while I enter my card details, but once you've got your pack, get the game installed and hit launch. So now we're in the main menus, it's time to select the right module. There's essentially two game modes in Star Citizen. Arena Commander is, as the name suggests, a collection of arena modes for a mix of space combat, FPS and racing. You don't make any progress as such, but it's quick to get into, and I would encourage you to check it out given the opportunity to practice your skills without the risk of losing anything except maybe a bit of time. Persistent Universe, or PU, is the main MMO module though, so that's what we're going to go for the purposes of this guide. This will take us on to the character creator. Now, I'm no artiste, so I'm not going to go through the wide array of options you have from tattoos to freckles. I'll leave designing your perfect look to you. But when you're done, it is possible to save presets, which will stick in your user folder and persist between patches, just to allow you to get that exact look each time the game patches and you have to redo your character. You can also download and load in ones that other people have designed. I'll include a link to a website that hosts a bunch of these if, like me, you prefer to let others do the hard work for you. Now next you're going to get a pop-up asking if you'd like to play the tutorial. Honestly, I'm told it's much better now than it was, so it might well be worth having a go. However, I'm going to hit skip since I'm guessing more than a few people might be here because they've tried that one already, and also for the purposes of making a guide, you don't really want to just be playing the tutorial for somebody else. But with your character locked in, it's now time to consider your starting or home location. You'll be able to travel and set your spawn anywhere, but your home location dictates a few important bits. It's where you have your persistent hangar, where between logins you can leave stuff out and about and even decorate it to some degree. And it's where any rewards you earn are going to get delivered. Now currently we have two systems to choose from, Stanton and Pyro, and since I'm hoping that this guide will stay relevant for about 6 months like the last one did, if you're watching a bit further down the line we'll likely have a third one, Nyx. While the choice is entirely yours, I would recommend that as a new player you kick things off in Stanton. Stanton is a lawful UEE system. You can still get attacked by other players, but they will get a crime stat, kind of like a wanted level in GTA. In Pyro, and probably to some extent Nyx, there's little to no discouragement of PvP and PKing. Within Stanton there are 4 cities, each on a different planet on which you can base yourself. Area 18 on ArcCorp, Lorville on Hurston, Horizon on Crusader, and New Babbage on Microtech. I do have a video running through all of these options, but honestly there's not too much to choose from them, and it's mostly down to vibes. So for this example, I'm going to go for Area 18. Select your region, or just leave it at best, and then hit launch. The first time you load in a patch, you will get this warning about not being able to shift your home location. As long as you're happy, just confirm and you'll load in. And here we are in our personal hangar. It used to be that you would spawn in the city's hubs and the first 10 to 15 minutes would be spent finding your way into the spaceport. So thankfully we don't have to worry about that bit and we can get straight into basic training. On-foot movement is standard FPS fare, WSAD for walking and mouse to look around. Use F4 to access the third person camera, and you can hold Z to free look around yourself, good for getting screenshots. And there are 2 cameras that you cycle through with F4 to get back to FPS. When walking, you can increase your base speed by scrolling up on the mouse wheel, and you can hold shift to sprint. Scrolling all the way down will get you back to a slow walk. Next up, let's take a look at accessing your inventory. These terminals will provide you with access to any items that you have stored in a landing zone or station. Interact with the terminal by pressing F. Your F key is likely to get somewhat worn out playing Starship, as you'll need it to access every terminal, call every elevator, and open every door. If unsure, just press F. You'll always find a couple of inventory terminals in hangars, but they're also dotted around all over landing zones and space stations. Since I did get that sitcom pack, I've actually got a set of armor and a gun straight off the bat. So let's just go ahead and pop that on. You can drag individual items across from the inventory panel on the right to your character, and where an item fits you'll get that little circle guiding you where it can go. If you want to be a bit quicker, you can also just double click to automatically equip items where they go. If you want to spin around your character to get a better view, you can hold right mouse button and spin the camera with the mouse. You can also scroll in and out with the mouse wheel to get a better view. Adding a backpack gives you inventory space on the left hand side, as do certain items like cores and legs. And backpacks also increase your slots for 2-handed weapons. Most armors just take 1, but with a backpack you can carry 2. In the past, I wouldn't have encouraged you to gear up like this before flying your ship for the first time, since there was always a risk of losing your items. However, nowadays we have tier 0 item recovery, so basically if you respawn, you'll do so with all of your equipped gear. The only things that are at risk are those that are in the storage, like your backpack, so there's no reason not to get a full set of armor on early doors. Since we're geared up, let's go ahead and get our ship out. Head to the yellow ASOP terminal here and access it again with F. Wherever you see these, you can pull out your ships. Now my Aegis Avenger Titan is the only one in my list here so far, and that first time that you pull it, you'll have to get your ship delivered. This is instantaneous and it doesn't cost you anything, so just click the deliver icon. We can then click on retrieve and pull the ship out. The floor of the elevator is going to drop down quite far and then it will come back up with the ship. By all means wander over and take a look, but just don't fall in. So here we've got our Titan. There are many like it, but this one is mine. By default, you're going to have HUD markers pointing out the different entrance points for the ship, and in time you might want to clear your HUD up a bit by disabling this in the options menu. But to start with, while you're familiarising yourself with lots of different ships, I would really recommend just leaving it on. The Titan does have a direct cockpit access to save time, but for the first go, let's enter via the ramp at the rear. Find the prompt and hit F to drop the ramp down, then head up through the cargo bay at the back, and through the next door we've got a small but functional habitation area with a bed and some light facilities from which we can log out. And then through the final door we get to the cockpit. Hit F on the enter seat prompt to sit down. Now you can, particularly if you really like immersion, hold down the F key to enter interaction mode and look around the dashboard, using the individual buttons to activate various systems by looking at them and left clicking on the mouse. The Flight Ready command is your full startup, getting power to all systems. However, I would always recommend that you start learning keyboard shortcuts from the very beginning, as they save on time and make you more effective at keeping your hands on the ship controls while inputting the commands. So U for uniform will shut everything down and completely turn the ship off. And to Flight Ready again, just hold left alt and press R for Romeo. Now just before we go any further, I would definitely encourage you to turn on the advanced HUD. It's honestly something I think should be on by default and you should have the option to turn off, but it is a good chance to look at our multifunctional displays or MFDs. The ship screens are not just for show and can be interacted with by holding F and looking at them. And then to focus on one, you can click middle mouse button to just orient the view. It can be a little bit janky, but it just helps you see what's on the screen better. Click on the arrows along the bottom to scroll through the different screens, and we want to get to one which says Configuration. And then at the top, in the three options, we select HUD. Now we want to click on all of the sliders for all of the three advanced HUD items, SCM, Nav, and Labels. And you can now see this additional overlay, which to my mind is way easier to read than the maybe more artistic panel-based instruments. I wanted to take this detour because it was also a good option to show MFDs in a low pressure situation, but the advanced HUD is something we probably want on all of the time on every ship we use, at least that's how I roll. So let's hit escape to open the menu and just navigate to the options. Scroll down in the first game settings tab until you find defaults, HUD, advanced HUD, and change all of those three options to yes. So we're about ready to make our first flight, but first we need to get the hangar doors moving. And to do this, we need to make a call to ATC. There are three ways to do this, and I will show them all. But first, since we're on the subject of MFDs anyway, let's go ahead and use those. Hold F to interact and focus on one of your displays, and then use the buttons to scroll to the communications screen. Then click on Hail next to Area 18 landing services. If you're in range of a station, then ATC will always be at the top of the list in this panel, even if you start adding friends to the game and they're in there too. So with the doors opening, we can start flying. Hold space to thrust upwards, and by default with your hands off any inputs, your ship will just hover in place after you're done. You can hit F4 to use third person camera, and you can spin it around by holding Z same as you can on foot. When the gap looks wide enough though, use W to thrust forwards out of the hangar. And we're going a bit slow because our landing gear is down, capping our speed at 30 meters per second. So pull that up by pressing N for November and you'll be able to get more speed. You control the pitch and the yaw of your ship with the mouse, so basically just think about it as where you point your mouse, that's where the nose is going to head towards. You thrust forward and back with W and S, up and down with spacebar and left control, left and right with A and D. And also roll left and right with Q and E. Now apparently I wasn't quite far enough away from the spaceport and I'm risking a parking violation, so let's get a move on and clear the area, and just start pitching up towards space. Now I can add some boost or afterburner with shift to add a bit more speed. Let's take a pause here and a minute to look around the HUD at some of the details that we're seeing. There's an awful lot going on here, so I'm not interested in covering every single element. I just want to cover the most important parts for ensuring that you have a safe first flight. Starting on the right, we've got the altimeter showing our current altitude, and you can also see a smaller but exact readout to the right of that. Next we've got the afterburner meter, and since we started boosting, this has dropped and you can see we've got 89% boost remaining. Once it's gone, the afterburner will cut out and we'll need to just let it recharge. In the centre of the display, we've got the pitch meter showing our current angle of ascent. This will only show when we're within the atmosphere or a planet or moon, since it's relative to the surface, so you can tell when you've reached actual space and you're out of atmosphere, because that will disappear. Directly above that is the compass showing our current bearing. Over to the left, we've got the speedometer, showing our current speed at 371 meters per second and our speed limit. You can hold left alt and scroll up and down on the mouse wheel to set a speed cap just to avoid going too fast. Down in the bottom, we have our fuel gauges, showing both hydrogen and quantum fuel. We're currently using hydrogen fuel right now for our normal flying. We also have quantum engines for making longer journeys that use an alternate type of fuel, so you can see both gauges there. And finally, for this rapid run through, I want to look at the flight mode indicator, since we're about to make a switch. Essentially, you have two main flight modes, SCM, which stands for Space Combat Maneuvering, and this gives you a lower maximum speed, but you've got the ability to power all of your ships, weapons, and shields. Meanwhile, Nav, or Navigation Mode, allows you to travel at much faster speeds, and also provides you with access to your quantum travel, but you do lose your guns, your shields, as well as things like missiles and countermeasures. To switch between modes, hold down B for Bravo. We can then see in the top left that our shields are dropping as we switch over. There's a circle next to the mode indicator showing that we're transitioning between modes. When that goes green, you're going to see an immediate pickup in your speed. And my left hand's getting a bit tired, so we'll activate cruise control with left alt and C for cruise. This will just keep us heading forwards while I do other stuff. It's not an autopilot, it is just going to fly in a straight line at the speed that you set it. With the ship to some degree flying itself, let's access the map and set our first quantum jump. Press F2 to open your Mobiglass's map. The Mobiglass is essentially your space smartphone, and it contains all sorts of stuff that we'll look at as we go. So here we can see the planet ArcCorp, and I'm looking here for Bikini Point, the low Earth orbital station that's always directly above the capital city Area 18. You're going to find one of these at every planet in Stanton. So if you're starting from Lorville on Hurston, look for Everest Harbour, Seraphim Station is above Horizon on Crusader, and Port Tressler is above New Babbage on Microtech. I'll click on Bikini to select it, and then click the green route button to set a course. You can then just press F2 to close the map app. Now we have a HUD marker for the station, and can line up on it and calibrate our jump drive. When that's done, we hold down left mouse button to make the short jump. This was only a couple of 100 kilometers, but we make it a case of seconds rather than minutes, and you will get used to QTing just whenever you can. Remember to cancel your cruise control with left alt and C again, and start flying towards the station. Since we're in 0G now, you'll be able to quickly accelerate at some very high speeds, so you may want to hold left alt and scroll to just cap your speed at some sensible levels. And as a general rule of thumb, it makes sense to never point your ship directly at the space station or any other solid object you're flying towards, just in case you overshoot. You can switch to sub modes by pressing middle mouse button, so I can switch from Nav Quantum to Nav Flight, just with one press of that. And this just gets rid of all the quantum markers and cleans up my view a bit. To slow down, use the space brake with X, and add power to this by holding Shift for afterburner. Always keep in mind that the shape of your ship and the placement of thrusters dictates the speed at which you can decelerate. So if I want to slow down really quickly, I can spin on the spot and make sure that my large forward thrusters on the rear of the ship are adding their power, rather than relying on my small backwards thrusters on the front. When we get close into the station, we'll want to call ATC. This time we'll use the Mobiglass. Jump straight to the comms panel by pressing F11, then hit Friends at the top left. And here we can click the hail button next to Bikini Point, call them and get a hangar assigned. The indicator is just going to pop up on my HUD, so I'm going to guide in there. Just resist the need for speed for these early landings. It's really easy to find the hangar, and its walls coming up on you very quickly if you're not careful. So drop that speed limiter and pop your landing gear down with N to automatically drop your cap to 30 meters per second again. You can always use Afterburner to boost through this speed limit when you've got the landing gear down, but just be careful. You don't want to pancake on your first flight and have to do it all again. Use that third person camera on F4 to position yourself. If you ever want to reset it to its original position, just keep holding F4 and then press the asterisk on the number pad. So now we've landed, just before we hop out of the seat, it's worth just looking at landing services. Open the main page of the Mobiglass with F1 and then navigate to the landing app along the bottom of the screen. Here we can pay for repairs, restocks and refueling our ship. Since we've barely done anything and thankfully not taken any damage, we don't have services available for much. We can pay a princely 7 credits to top up our hydrogen tanks. Once you're fueled up, there's no need to power down the entire ship, you can just pop the engines off by pressing I for Indigo. You can also turn off the shields by pressing O for Oscar, and the weapons by pressing P for Papa. Then just hold Y for yellow to get yourself up out of the seat, and Y will work on any seat, turret or bed that you find yourself in. The hangar is pretty much identical up here to the one that we had down on the planet, so we can head to the ASOP terminal and access it to store our ship by clicking the garage icon next to it in the list. We can use F to call the elevator, and then select Lobby from the bottom of the panel. And panels like this can have a list of options which you can scroll through with mouse wheel, but the most accessed options will be pinned at the bottom. In the lobby, we've also got a bank of ASOP terminals, and we can make our way into the station interior. Just don't forget to stop and enjoy some of the views. Sometimes you can just concentrate far too much on making sure you're doing everything right, and you don't take the time to look around and appreciate the game. In Star Citizen, there are some minor survival elements. It's not too onerous, but you will have to eat and drink periodically, probably once or so a session. However, as good as those hot dogs look, there is something in the way here. So to quickly take off your helmet, hold left alt and press H for, helmet. You can quick buy small items like this just by tapping F on the prompt. They'll pop straight into your hand, and then you can hold left mouse down to really savour the flavour. Let's grab a can of pips as well, same thing, F to buy, left mouse to chug. In this case we will be left with the can. You can look at your items in your hand and hold F to bring up an interaction wheel, which you can then spin around with your mouse. Store would pop it into my backpack, but in this case I want to place it, so highlight that and left click on that. A blue highlight will then come up, showing where I can put this down, with my next left mouse click. So let's just go ahead and pop that in the bin. Just make sure you press Alt and H to get your helmet back on. You don't want to do your next spacewalk and find yourself breathing vacuum. For our next stop though, let's head straight to the medical clinic to set spawn. Every station has one of these, and it's always in the first deck along with the habs and hangars. These patient check-in terminals are for if you need healing. I'm sure I'll have an accident later, but for now I'm fine. I can just instead head straight to the insurance terminals. Interact with this terminal and click Transfer Imprint to set your spawn up here at Virginie Point. Now if anything happens, and it certainly will before too long, you'll wake up good as new here at the space station clinic, and you'll be able to get straight back into the action without having to make another trip up off the planet. I think one of the biggest challenges when people start Star Citizen is that there's a lot of things which can, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, cost you a load of time. So as much as anything, a really big objective for me is to just show you all the ways I can think of that can save you that time in the beginning. Now while we do have enough startup cash, particularly since I used a referral code, to hang out at the station living on hot dogs for quite some time, it's probably worth thinking about making some money. There are a number of self-directed sandbox type activities like mining and salvaging, but the best place to start for new players is going to be with missions. You can open your Mobiglass with F1 and then navigate to the Contract Manager app along the bottom. This will bring you up a bunch of different missions which are divided up into categories. The missions that you see are dependent on your general location, so keep in mind that you may have to move closer to a certain planet to get certain contracts to show up. Since I want to carry on with our flying lessons though, let's start out with some ship combat. And we have a few different avenues, but let's kick things off with the Bounty Hunter category. So just open up that section by clicking on it, and you'll see one underlying mission to begin with. This is essentially a test against a target to prove that you're good enough to work for the Bounty Hunters Guild. For this one, you'll pay 500 credits, but it will qualify us for paid work. You'll spend money to make money. Click in the bottom right hand corner to pay the fee and accept the contract. This will then move it to our Accepted tab. We can now see a marker for the mission on the HUD, and tracking in the top right. Since we haven't relogged, we could just head back to the elevators and our hangar would still be there. But just in case you took a break and logged in and out, for the first time during a session, you would need to call your ship from these ASOP terminals in the lobby. This spawns the ship, and it also spawns your hangar if you need one. You can then take the elevator there. Now, a nice feature of the Titan is its cockpit's entrance, so we can hop in using that instead. Just find the prompt next to where the ladder is, and if you just used enter ship, it will just get you straight into the seat. Then it's a case of firing back up and calling ATC. Now, we already looked at MFD and the Mobiglass, but now for the way I do it all the time, keyboard shortcuts. By default, right alt and N for November will call ATC. However, this is a command that I always personally rebind just to F3, as this has no overlap and it's much easier for me to reach out and tap, which is particularly useful when you're flying into a station or landing zone and you want to minimise the time you take your hands off the controls. If you're still in nav flight mode, you'll want to cycle back to nav QT mode with middle mouse clicks, then open your map with F2. Missions often, but not always, have their own QT markers. You can click on them in the map, but you can also use the contracts list on the right hand side to quickly find them and select them, then just set a route. This will set us a 2-stage jump, first to Wala, and then to a target marker down on the surface of the moon. Line up, calibrate, and punch it by holding left mouse. Some QT jumps are for convenience, but others like this are a necessity. There's no way you're flying this distance with hydro engines, and in the context of this game, this is still a fairly short distance to travel. When making jumps between points in space, you'll need to make sure that you have line of sight and avoid any obstructions. But when making jumps down to planets, your ship can plot a course that, if necessary, will take you around the curvature of the planet to the other side. So just line up the next jump and send it. Just make sure to watch in the external camera, as it is really quite pretty. This is going to drop us out about 30 to 40 kilometers away from the target, and unfortunately, we're in the dark. You can let out a ping with tab that acts as a quasi-night vision. It's a good habit to get into to ping from time to time to make sure that you're seeing where the ground is and avoiding any hazards like the occasional mountain in the dark. As we get closer, I want to switch back to SCM mode by holding B to get power going into our shields and our guns before we fight. We can also control our ship's power from the MFDs. Cycling to the Power Management tab, we can see our available power pips and how they're allocated between weapons, thrusters, and shields. More pips in weapons equals more shots in our energy-based guns and faster recharge speeds. More in thrusters gives us faster recharge of our afterburner, and more in shields gives us faster recharge on those. I currently have 1 point unassigned, so let's just go ahead and give ourselves a wee bit more power to weapons. As we get closer in, we'll want to let out a ping to scan for the target, and this bubble return indicates there's something there, and since it's up in the sky, it's a pretty safe bet that it's an enemy ship, not a rock. And sure enough, there's a red chevron indicating a hostile ship, so that's our man. So here let's look at a couple of other elements of the HUD. So since we've got a helmet on, we've got self-status readout on the top left. We can see our own ship and the shields are visualized, so we can see that they're fully up. Below the ship, we've also got these numbers reading 25, 2000, 25. These are our 3 guns. So the stock loadout on the Titan is a pair of laser cannons on the wings and a ballistic Gatling gun on the nose. Laser weapons use your ship's power, so while you do have a finite magazine, in this case 25 shots, They will then recharge when you stop firing, essentially meaning that you've got infinite ammo. Ballistic weapons though, like the Gatling gun, don't rely on power, but instead are limited in their ammunition. So I've got 2,000 shots in that gun, but once they're gone, and I'd have to restock back at a station or a landing pad using that landing services tab. Over on the right hand side in the same place, we've got the target status of the enemy ship. You can also use this to visually identify what it is you're fighting, so in this case an Origin 85X, nothing too dangerous. Now the skill ceiling on flight-based combat in SC is seriously high, and there's a lot that you can learn. I'm just going to focus on a couple of key points that I hope will let you live long enough to get better. Number 1, never stop moving. When you're trying to do two things at once, fly and shoot, it can be easy to drift off one of them and end up staying still while you try to line up your shots. Staying still makes you an easy target, and you'll find yourself getting blown up incredibly quickly. Second, focus on your accuracy. You'll get targeting pips that will lead the target. You're aiming for these, not for the ship itself, as your shots would land behind and miss. Line up your crosshairs on the pips, and hold left mouse to squeeze off some shots. Keep in mind that if you waste your shots and miss, you might find that you don't have shots in the magazine when you do have a good moment. So exercise some trigger discipline and try to only shoot when you're sure you've got a good chance of scoring a hit. While SC is a space game, the flight model is kinda like World War II planes with a sci-fi theme. The ships behave more like planes than they do spaceships. It's nearly always faster to turn by rolling on your side and pulling up than by yawing by dragging the mouse left or right. With a couple of good passes, that ship will pop and you'll complete the mission. Just be sure to avoid the debris of the destroyed target. Many a pilot has had their post-kill celebration cut short by smashing into the remains of their quarry. So since we've completed the trial contract, we'll now have missions in our contract manager to hunt very low risk targets, or VLRTs. This is the same sort of deal, but now you're going to be earning 19k for every bad guy you take out. As you complete more missions, you'll also gain reputation with the contract giver. So in your Mobiglass, you can navigate to the rep app and see the factions you've worked for. As you build up your reputation, you'll unlock new, harder missions, which come with more pay. But how about if you want something a little less violent? Well, SC is full of industrial or economic gameplay as well. So let's take a wee look at some basic cargo hauling just to balance out the pew-pew. I'm back at Bikini Point, and I just want to make a quick stop off to pick up a necessary item. Using the internal transit elevators, head to the cargo centre. Here we'll make our way to the cargo shop and use the terminals to access the inventory. You can search here for Pyro, which will bring up Pyro Multi-Tool. Before we hit buy, we can choose an alternative destination from the drop-down menu at the top. By default, items are going to go to the station inventory at Bikini Point. We can change it to go directly to our backpack. This isn't going to work for bigger items, but for small ones like the multi-tool, this can just save us a trip to the inventory kiosk. Then to buy just one, we can use the quick buy. Next up, I will search tractor for the TrueHold tractor beam, and we'll grab one of those too. The multi-tool can take a number of different attachments to do mining, medical, and salvage, but the tractor beam is essential basic kit that you should just have on you at all times. Finally, let's pick up the best sustenance in the game, cruise. This is basically space fuel, and will handle both hunger and thirst in one neat bottle. This time, if we click buy in the bottom right, we can select more than one using the quantity multiplier before hitting buy. Now if you press I, you'll directly access your inventory, and you can see the goods in your backpack. We can drag the multi-tool into our utility slot on the leg armor, and then drag the attachment onto the free spot on the multi-tool. If you want to have a cruise right now, you can also pop your helmet off by just dragging it into your backpack, then right click on the stack of drinks and select carry from the menu to get one in your hand. Close inventory again with I, and then hold left mouse to chug chug chug. Now open up your contract manager again, and this time select the hauling category. Here we've conveniently got a trial contract for Kovalex, who want us to take 6 SCU of freight from here at Bikini Point down to the spaceport at Area 18. This is going to be perfect for our Avenger Titan, which can carry up to 8 SCU, We'll take a look at options for pilots who maybe have a smaller starter ship in a minute, after we go through the basics of the contract. Unlike the bounty hunters, Covolex are willing to pay us from the start, and there's 50k on offer for this short haul run. So let's click accept offer and then head to our hangar. Now first, I'm going to reorient the ship a bit. We're going to be getting the cargo out of the freight elevator, so it makes sense to get as close as possible with our rear ramp just to save time and hassle. I would recommend that you bind a key for open close doors toggle, so you can quickly open your ramp from the pilot seat. Let's head to the freight elevator terminal and start by sending the elevator down with the down arrow on the left hand side. We can now access our inventory at the station. Small items like our pistol you can see there can be accessed via the inventory kiosks as well, but larger items like the cargo boxes can only be brought up and sent down via the freight elevator. So let's drag the stack of boxes across to the left hand window to put them on the elevator, and then bring it up by clicking on the up arrow. Now you won't be able to pick up boxes of this size with your bare hands, so this is what the tractor beam's for. Just pull that out by pressing 5. Then left click to pick up the box, and control its distance from you by using the mouse scroll wheel. You can just move that onto your ship. You'll get a blue outline where it will snap to the cargo grid. The Titan's cargo grid is a bit of a squeeze, but with a little alignment you'll get the boxes in no problem. Then you can mount up using the side ladder. Now we can access our map and set a course for Area 18. I could use the contract tracker on the right, but I can also just search for specific destinations using the search field here. This will then take us through a multi-stage jump, first to ArcCorp itself, and then down to Area 18 marker. Look for the spaceport itself and head down there. This is where you definitely want to be learning those keyboard shortcuts, making it way easier to call ATC while still heading straight to the destination. Land in the hangar, once again just thinking about the position relative to the freight elevator. Now I can use my open doors key to open up the ramp, and while it might be a bit awkward, I can actually just push the boxes out with my tractor beam, then start stacking them up on the grid of the elevator. Once they're stacked up, head to the terminal and click the down arrow. Since we're delivering contract cargo, we'll get this transaction confirmation. This lets us know we've got 6 of 6 boxes. So just click confirm and the freight elevator will descend and the mission will complete. Completing that mission will unlock more, and we can take advantage of stacking multiple contracts going to and from the same locations to make some serious starting cash. But our Titan was pretty much full with just one contract, and I know that some folks might not have a ship that was capable of even that one. Buying a ship outright in-game is probably a bit beyond our current bank balance, but thankfully this is where we can rely instead on rentals. Back at the cargo deck on Bikini Point, we can head over to the rental kiosk and access a bunch of ships, each of which can be rented for a relatively small fee for a 24-hour period. The downside here is that you can't make any modifications to the ship, but it's a great way for new players to try out different loops and make some cash. I would really say that this, more than anything, underlines the point about not needing to spend any more than the lowest possible amount of real cash on your starter pack. For 34k, we can rent a Mist Hull A, a great little cargo ship to get us hauling that can carry up to 64 SCU of cargo. We can call the Hull A out from the ASOP terminals. Now that we have 2 ships, we can see them both in the list. The Hull A has a timer next to it showing us how long is left on our rental period. For such a compact ship, it might not be immediately obvious where all the cargo goes, but if you hover and press left alt and K for kilo, the Hull A does its party trick, expanding with spindles that take the cargo externally. In the contract manager, I can look at the hauling tab for direct small planetary contracts, specifically that require us to shift goods from here at Bikini down to Rikers at Area 18. There's nothing stopping us stacking these up, and I've managed to line up 6 going to the same spot. It's a fair few boxes to move, but it is going to net us 300k in just one run, making that rental look like a great deal. Since we've made bank, I think it's time to head into the city for a little bit of a shopping trip. The route to the tram is well signposted, so we can follow the route through the spaceport and hop on the train to the plaza. but some of the main areas of the cities and larger stations can be a bit of a maze, so thankfully we can plot routes on foot. Just open the map with F2, and since we're not in a ship, it will default to the local map level. Here you'll see locations labelled that you can visit, dragging the map around by holding left mouse button and moving the mouse. I want to improve my FPS kit a bit, so I'm going to find the weapon retailer. If I then hover over it and press R, a route will appear and plot a path to the shop. When I exit the map with F2, you can still see the orange dotted line route appearing on the minimap in the top left of the screen, so we can follow that without risk of getting lost in the winding alleys of Area 18. I've been making SC guides for quite a while now, and honestly I'm so happy that you newer folks will never know the pain of trying to help new players escape major landing zones without this quality of life stuff. All over the verse you'll find various shops, but Kobe Blast here at Area 18 is a particularly good one if you're in the market for guns and armour. Many of the items are available to check out and buy directly off the walls. Just tap F on the guns to pick up one and give it a good look over. The P4AR here is one of my personal favourites, but unfortunately this dude is in the way of me checking it out, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy one. Holding down F will fill the meter and just buy it straight off the wall, sending it to your local inventory. You can also buy smaller items like this suppressor in the same way. However, not all of a shop's inventory will be on display on the shelves, so head over to the kiosk terminals and you'll be able to see everything. You can use the search to look for items like ammo, so I know I have a P4, so typing P4 in the bar will get me to the magazines as well as the gun itself. You can also narrow the selection with category and subcategory, so if I select personal weapons and attachments, I can stroll through a limited selection until I find a scope that I like the look of and a laser attachment. Just undo all this by going back to all categories on those drop downs. If you're lacking some armour, you can also search for specific types, or you can even just enter a colour that you like and see everything that they have in stock that's that colour. Don't forget to check out the armour on the mannequins. You can select try on to check out how you'd look in it before you buy it. Access your new goodies via the inventory kiosk. I'm going to drop off my sniper rifle and equip my new P4 on my backpack, and then I can drag on the individual attachments. You'll need to pay attention to the slots that your guns have, and you'll find that most guns have slots for scopes, underbarrel and barrel attachments. Generally speaking, pistols will take size 1 attachments, while rifles take size 2 and some heavier weapons take size 3. But it's not a perfect science, and you can look instead at the description of the gun by hovering over it to see what yours has. Magazines can be attached directly to your armour. Different armour types have slots for varying amounts of mags. The set I have on is light. I can move quick, but I only have space for 4 magazines. Heavier armour makes you slower, but it offers more protection and more slots. You can carry spare ammo in your backpack. Once you've used up what's attached to your armour, you'll perform a slower reload as your guy rummages around in the backpack. You can also quickly just resupply your quick access mags. Now I had every intention to include a bit of FPS in this video as well, but I really don't want to overload you at this stage, and I've got an eye on the likely time of this vid. I do intend to make a few short follow-up vids covering more specific aspects of the game. My channel is full of other in-depth guides on certain loops, so if you do like this type of content and would like to learn more, then please do consider hitting subscribe. But something I do want to cover off while I'm down here at Area 18 is a few ship upgrades. Heading back to the main plaza, we are going to make a stop off at the ArcCorp Tower and look for the elevator to Center Mass. Center Mass is primarily a ship weapons retailer, although they do have a number of personal weapons. I think it's time to upgrade the guns on our little Titan. Ballistic weapons are cool, but I'm not the biggest fan of mixed ballistic and energy weapon loadouts, particularly on smaller ships. So I'm looking to switch to a full laser loadout to minimise the amount I have to come back and restock if I'm chaining missions together. Just like with other shops, you can buy stuff directly off the walls, or you can look up the items in the shop kiosk. When you highlight a ship gun, you'll get a description over in the right hand panel telling you the weapon's type and size. So in the case of this Omniski 3, it's a size 1 laser cannon. Our Titan has 2 size 3 weapon hardpoints on the wings that are currently the slightly bigger Omniskis, and a size 4 hardpoint on the nose housing the Gatling gun. So we could just get a third laser cannon for the nose. However, cannons do high damage per shot but are slow firing. I want to switch over to laser repeaters which have a higher rate of fire. As with many things in SC, I would encourage you to experiment and find out what you enjoy the most. I can say that laser repeaters are the meta for good reason in terms of average sustained DPS. Here at Centre Mass, we've got the CF Panther series, which are size 3s. Now I could go somewhere else and look for the size 4 Rhino versions, but instead I'm going to buy 3 Panthers and use the flexibility of my weapon hardpoints to downsize the nose gun to a size 3 as well. Weapon hardpoints will take the size they are, but also accept one size down. Now you might well think, but big gun good, and generally I would agree with you. However, there are advantages to having matching sets of weapons. It makes it far easier to sync up your capacitors as you fire, run out and recharge at the same time. And also due to differences in terms of bullet velocity, you can avoid having 2 pips to aim at and avoid missing your shots. Just before you leave AC Tower though, be sure to take the elevator up to the top floor and take in the view. To equip the new guns, first we want to make sure that the ship is stored away. Then we open our Mobiglass and navigate to the Vehicle Manager app along the bottom. Select the Titan from the drop down in the top right. The tabs split up the ship's elements. Livery is where you'll find paints, propulsion has just your jump module, systems is components like shield generators, power plants and coolers, and ship weapons is where we want to head to install the new repeaters. If we click on the guns underneath the various mounts, we'll see the options that we have that would fit that slot. So click on the CF337 repeaters in each case. And before you close the Mobiglass, make sure to click on Save Changes and Equip in the bottom right corner, or none of this will save. Now when we call out our ship, we can see these nice new guns are installed and ready for use. So I hope this video has put you in a good spot to get your space legs and start making a bit of cash, completing missions, building rep and upgrading your ships. But at some point you're going to want to head further afield into systems like Pyro and in time Nyx. So as a last thing, we're just going to cover off making the jump through the wormhole to another system. First up, we're going to set a course and make a lengthy trip across to the Pyro Gateway. You can just search for this in your star map and jump as before. This one's going to take a little longer, so settle in and make sure you take some nice screenshots of your first ship in Quantum. At the gateway, you'll want to look out for the wormhole. If you let out a ping, you'll get jump point detected pop up in green on your HUD that could just help direct you if you get disoriented. But look out for the pathway of semicircular gates lining up with the entrance point. Since the gate's just active at the moment, I could just power through, but I want to show activating it, so I'm going to let these people go ahead first. Now just a spoiler warning here. The wormhole trip, to my mind, is one of the many things in SC that is amazing to experience for yourself for the first time. So by all means, just stick around to hear how you do it, but then skip this chapter so I don't spoil the actual trip for you. Make sure that you're in nav, quantum mode, and fly up through the gates. When you get close to the wormhole, your HUD will change over. First it will check entry requirements, then tune, then prompt you to activate the jump point. Just left click to do so. After a little bit of time, you'll then automatically get pulled into the wormhole. Just try and steer smoothly, avoiding contact with the walls of the tunnel and missing the pillars. Remember the tips about how ships turn quicker by pulling up the nose, so roll and pull to turn rather than yawing to make life easier for yourself. And do not worry if you make a mistake. Can't damage your ship doing this. The worst that could happen is you make too much contact with the edges, and then you get dropped out of the trip somewhere near the gateway station and have to just QT back there to try again. But before long you'll find yourself on the other side in Pyro, full of more missions and locations to explore. You know, just watch out for pirates and scoundrels. So there we have it for the new player guide. A big thank you for watching to the end, and I hope that it serves you well getting you started in game. My one last parting point is not to leave it too long before you start playing with other people. Starset is a really cool experience solo, but the game goes up another few levels once you get involved with other people. A lot of the ships are designed from the ground up as true multi-crew vessels, so when you find yourself a party to hang out with, you'll be able to experience far more of the game. If you'd like to get a first taste, you are of course welcome to pop into our community Discord. We do run an org, but there's no pressure to join that. We host a variety of event nights where all are welcome and encouraged to get involved. You'll find the link to that down in the video description below. If you think I've earned it, then I would massively appreciate if you liked the vid, subscribed to the channel, and shared it with others who you think might benefit from the walkthrough. This is maybe the 6th or 7th new players guide I've made over 5 years, and it never fails to amaze me how much my channel has grown in that time. But still, word of mouth and personal recommendation is by far the best advertising. With all that said, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.